Are you always wondering when is the best time to drain your dry pasta so that it is always perfect every time it hits the table? Well, in this video, I'm gonna show you the tips and techniques you need so that it is perfect every single time. Hi, I'm Chef Sabrina, teaching you the cooking and baking techniques you need to tackle any dish you've always been too afraid of trying. And if you like my videos, please consider subscribing. Okay, so let's get started. So dry pasta is really what most of us think about when we think about pasta, unless you're in Italy, and then that's a completely different story because still today a lot of people eat fresh pasta. But I'll talk more about that in another video. So your dry pasta is your orecchiette, your rigatoni, your spaghetti, your penne. It's basically what most of us think about and what we eat every day. Or maybe not every day, but almost every day if you're in my family. But for how long do you cook it? And how do you read the packaging instructions? How do you determine the amount of minutes it needs to be in the water? And then what is al dente? What does that mean? When is it al dente? I'm gonna tell you exactly how you need to determine the amount of minutes that you need to boil your pasta for. And then what do you do afterwards if you wanna have it perfect when it hits the table and it's not overcooked or too dry. But remember, everybody has to be at the table because I get really chefy if everybody's not on the table when the pasta is ready. Okay, so first rule or first technique. You have to cook your pasta in lots and lots of salted water. Lots of it. A lot more than you think you need. And the reason is because once it starts to cook and boil, the pasta absorbs water. And so it swells up. And if you thought that you had space before, now you don't. And if the pasta is overcrowded in your pot, it will start to stick. And yes, that's why pasta sticks. No, you don't need to add oil to your water because otherwise you're gonna be boiling oil and we don't want that. Just let it swim freely in your pot. Just use a big pot, use a bigger pot, and if you have a huge crowd, then I advise you to do it in steps. And if you want to learn more about how to make pasta for a big crowd so that it's not a sticky mush, let me know in the comments, okay, below, and I can do a video about that. So, boiling water, lots of it. Okay, second rule or second technique. Salted water, I said, right? So please, please, please salt your water. I mean, think about it. It's the only time you need to really season the pasta from the inside out because otherwise it's just gonna have the flavor of wheat or semola or semolina or whatever your pasta is made of or chickpeas. So you really wanna season the pasta and the only time you have is when it's in the boiling water. In fact, in Italy, some people even boil their pasta in broth or stock because they wanna increase the flavor that the pasta itself has before it hits the sauce. So, a lot of salted water. And how much salt? Taste it. Taste the water. Yeah, taste the water. We're cooking, we're in the kitchen, we have to taste everything. So, taste the water. And it's good, tastes salty. Tastes a little bit like the ocean. Not really, but it just tastes salty. That means that it's going to season my pasta. And then what's next? Cover your pot. Cover it and boil the water. And don't look at it because you're gonna start getting anxious and it's never gonna boil. And if you don't have a lid, use a saute pan, use some aluminum foil, use whatever you have. But cover it because otherwise it's gonna take so much longer to boil. Okay, so for how long? Right? That's what we all want to know. How long do I have to boil my pasta so that it is al dente when I eat it? And what is al dente? Well, I'll show you that, exactly what it is, so stick with me. But what about the timing? So you have to read the package, but the packaging can be a little bit confusing because some of them give you a range, like cook from 5 to 7 minutes or from 8 to 11 minutes. And then other packages give you like a guideline as in 10 minutes for al dente, but 12 minutes cooking time. Cooking time? Oh, it's super confusing. So here it is. When you see that a package says from 5 to 7 minutes, so it's a range, you always pick the lower number. And if you want, pick even a minute less. So if it's from 5 to 7, choose 4. And taste it, right? And then if it tells you, well, it's al dente in 10 minutes, but cooking time is 12, in that case, you know what? Instead of 10 for al dente, just do 8. Do 2 less or 3 less of what the packaging says. And taste it then. Because then you have to drain it or switch it to your saute pan, which is what I'm gonna do and I'm gonna show you, and then saute with your sauce, or even if you don't saute, you still need to add the sauce, right? And then you have to serve it, and then you have to put it on the table, and then of course more than 2 and 3 and maybe more than 5 minutes already went by. So it's overcooked because it continues to cook after you take it out of the water with the heat from the sauce and the residual heat. So always reduce the amount of time. So in my case, I'm going to make some rigatoni. And the packaging says al dente in 10 minutes. So I'm gonna do 7 minutes and I'm gonna show you how that looks. Okay, so the pasta is on a rolling boil, which is how it should be so that it doesn't stick. And I'm gonna add my pasta and I'm gonna give her a swirl. Make sure you move it, that you move it around so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan at the beginning, and you just let it go. If you see that you have a lot of pasta and that you think it's gonna take a little bit of time to like go back to a boil, cover it. Cover it, wait a few seconds, and once it starts to boil again, then you uncover it. So we said 7 minutes for this, right? So let's put the timer right now. Okay, so it's 7 minutes and I'm ready to taste. It's the only way we can know, right? So let's grab one. And what is al dente? Al dente basically means to the tooth, so that it has a bite. When you chew it, it's not super fluffy. It's hot. I mean, this is still crunchy. And you can see the inside. It still has some white in it. We do want a little bit of white, but not this much. This is still a little crunchy. So I'm gonna leave it for an extra minute. In the meantime, let me tell you, I'm going to move this pasta to my saute pan where I have my tomato sauce ready. But if you want to drain it instead of just transferring it, make sure you reserve some of the pasta water, okay? And it has a little bit of foam, and that foam that you see is all the starch. The starch is all over the place, but it has a lot of it. That foam has a lot of the starch. So I'm just gonna reserve some. Make sure that you reserve it in case you're gonna drain your pasta. Don't leave without your pasta water. It has all the starches from the pasta that's gonna help your sauce to stick to the pasta a lot better, okay? So it's really important. And it has a little bit of seasoning too from the salt, right? So it's gonna help you with the seasoning and with the sauteing and with the marrying of the pasta and the sauce. Okay, so another minute passed by. Let's taste it again. Good. It still has a bite. It has some chew, but I can still see the white, but it's not crunchy anymore. So I'm gonna transfer it to my saute pan with my tomato sauce and start sauteing. Okay, so how do we transfer the pasta? Well, whatever way you like. You can use a colander, you can use a gadget like this, or you can drain it like we said, as long as you remember to save some of the pasta water, and just transfer it to your saute pan. Now notice that my saute pan is already with the sauce on the stove. It means that the tomato sauce is hot, waiting for the pasta. So why do I like to transfer my pasta instead of draining it? It's really up to you. If you don't want to dirty another pot, or saute pan, which I can understand, just drain it and add it to your pot and make sure that you stir it. Now I'm gonna add a little bit more pasta water just to make sure that all those starches stick to my pasta, and I'm gonna saute. And then, guess what? We're gonna taste. We have to taste, taste, taste. We're just cooking here, people. We're not magicians. We have to taste. We're in the kitchen. You have to taste everything. I'm gonna lower the heat a little bit so I can taste it, which means that you always have to put a few more for all those tastes, right? Let me show you. See, I can still see a little bit of white, which means it's still al dente. It has a bite to it. It doesn't need anything. Maybe a little bit of pepper. Okay, so my pasta is ready, right? So fire off. And now I'm gonna add some cheese. Okay, what cheese? Parmigiano Reggiano, baby. Or maybe pecorino, or maybe salted ricotta, ricotta salata, whatever you like. I like to add a little bit on the saute pan so that I can first kind of like make it a little bit more creamy and make sure that everybody gets a little bit of that cheese. And then I add a little bit more, because why not, on each plate. Now, if you see that your pasta starts drying out a little bit, guess what? Pasta water. A little bit, even afterwards, okay? It just makes everything a little bit more loose, a little bit even creamier because of the starches, and you revive the sauce. Especially if you have a bunch of people and you need to serve a lot of plates, make sure you always have a little bit of pasta water, so like every 3 to 5 plates, you add a little bit, you make it thin again, because it does start drying out. So it is important to keep that pasta water until the end. And I mean, who can resist Parmigiano, right? A little bit of basil, okay? Basil in the summertime, maybe some oregano, dry oregano in the wintertime. I like the oregano from the south of Italy. A little bit of olive oil, because it just gives that freshness that it needs. And that's it. Ready to plate. This looks so good. So please let me know if you like this recipe. If you want to know how I make my tomato sauce, just write it on the comments and I can show you that. I'll be making another video also with similar techniques, but with fresh pasta, because it is completely different. A little bit more cheese. You can even add a little bit more olive oil now too. And ready to taste. Let's see if it's still al dente. I love it. So what techniques would you like to learn? Let me know if there's any recipe that you need to learn, that you've always wanted to learn but you haven't been able to because of the technique you're a little bit afraid of, or maybe if there's an ingredient you'd like to tackle and you see it in the supermarket and you always wonder what to do with it. Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.